is Michael van Geren's first Euro Tour title of the year, winning in Belgium. And if he wins in Belgium next year, it might not be the only time he'll win in Belgium, because the PDC have announced, according to Dan Dawson, that PDC Europe will hold 2 Euro Tours next year in Belgium, doubling the amount that from this year, as well as the first Euro Tour appearance in Switzerland. That, of course, means there'll be 2 fewer events in Germany. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it was good news. And I think the only downside to the tweet that Dan put out was that he mentioned that the Euro Tour is expected to remain at 13 events. I know there's been rumours in the last year or so of it being extended now that we are post-pandemic and we are back to that full calendar of events. But it's a problem that Barry Hearn, Matt Porter, when they've been on the show, they've both mentioned it, that there is only 52 weeks in the year. And how do you cram more events into a calendar that is already bulging for the PDC with what they're running at the moment? I just think back, when I think to the Euro Tour and how they're expanding, I think back to the chat that we had during our Darts Legend series a few years ago now with Rod Harrington, and his vision that he had for the Euro Tour was expanding it to 20 events a year, and he wanted every tour card holder to be involved in those events. And so that was going to be an expanded Euro Tour, and some of those events would replace some of the Players' Championship events. Well, we've seen Rod, he's retired now, so I don't know if we're going to see that vision come to light, but you'd like to think one day down the road we are going to see that number of events, 13 at the moment, increase, maybe not to 20, but 15 or 16. But in the meantime, as we're seeing now, it is going to be a juggling act for the PDC. Those 13 weekends on the Euro Tour, they are hot commodities now, aren't they? You've got countries, regions battling it out to host them events, and it's a great position for the PDC to be in, a tough one, trying to put together that best schedule, because we've seen Germany has been a massive market, still is for the PDC, and you can't argue with how much it's played a part in the success of the Euro Tour to get to where they are now. But as we saw at the weekend, that the news coming out, we've got 2 new events. You've got the second one in Belgium next year. A few weeks ago, they mentioned the one in Switzerland coming up as well, and that will mean 2 less events in Germany. They're going from 8 to 6, and I think that is a better balance. I think we're going to see these 2 new events. If they deliver or not, that's only time's going to tell on that one. And the PDC, we know they're going to assess how they go. If they don't go very well, maybe they will look elsewhere. And I don't know too much about live darts in Switzerland and how that event's going to go, but we've had one of the guys on from the SDC, the Swiss Darts Corporation, and I think it was last year, and the setup they've got for their tour events is superb. You know, the events are run very professionally, so I've got high hopes for that event, especially if they're going to be involved in some way. And the second event in Belgium, I've got to mention the crowd at the weekend, because I thought the crowd at the Belgian Darts Open, and a few of the players mentioned it as well, they were brilliant. The best of order, it was impeccable. The respect that they showed all the players, and even the games when you had a player from Belgium going up against a player from another country, it was class. And it goes to show that you can have a really good atmosphere, and at the same time you've not got fans whistling and booing players. So yeah, more of that, and I'm definitely on board.
Well, you took the exact opposite approach I was going to take. I was going to question how Belgium could host darts tournaments if they weren't going to go out of their way to only root for the hometown players. But all joking aside, no, I think this is good. And Belgium is not the first country other than Germany to get multiple events. Austria's got it in the past. And I think it's a good thing to show that the sport is growing in many places. Now, obviously, Belgium has for a while had good players. Kim Huybrechts and Dimitri Vandenberg have been their best players for some time now. But before that, Eric Claris. So Belgium, has a history and has hosted the European Championships before. Switzerland, less so. But if you go back when we started the show, I know in the first couple of years, we talked about how many events there were in Germany, and we talked about, ultimately I think we were in agreement that Germany wouldn't continue to host 8, 9 of the Euro Tour events. Eventually, it would have to go down because the PDC, even though there was money to be made in Germany, there's more money to be made by growing the sport in other places. And it's not that the German market has gotten saturated. Germany can continue to host 8, 9, probably could host all 13 events and sell them out. But that's not going to grow the game the way the PDC wants it. The PDC wants there to be revenue coming in from every country in the world and bringing events to places that haven't had events and getting those events to get publicity in those countries and to eventually get those events on television is the key thing. I was just in Poland last week. Poland will be hosting a World Series event in a couple months, but I could not find darts on Polish television. That doesn't mean it wasn't there, but it wasn't in the hotels I was in. It wasn't being shown on the bars anywhere I went. And the PDC is going to want to change that. Bringing events to these countries is part of that goal long term to get the sport, if not into the mainstream, at least into the on the verge of the mainstream, to at least be in people's perceptions. And getting an event in Switzerland, getting a second event in Belgium is a way to do that. I think this is good, and I don't know how few the events in Germany will eventually get. I think that it will always be Germany with the most. One, Germany's the biggest country in Europe. Okay, Russia has more people, but other than that, Germany is the most populous country in Europe. So having more events in Germany makes sense. Germany is also a very diverse country historically. You have, Eastern Germany, Western Germany. Saarbrücken was its own country at one point. I mean, before the 1850s, Germany was 70 different countries. So there's a lot of people with distinct cultural identities, all of whom the PDC is trying to reach, and having events all over the country will make sense. But there are other places to get to. And as you mentioned, how many more than 13 events you can have with the calendar only having 52 weeks is a question. Maybe you can squeeze one or two more in the long run. Maybe you can get to 15, but I can't really see it getting much more above that, which means if the PDC wants to get to more countries, it is going to mean not more Eurotour events, but fewer events in Germany. I think this is that first real push in that direction. You're seeing now only the 6 events in Germany. I think a couple years from now, that will go down again. I don't see any time in the near future going down below 4, maybe even 5 is the bare minimum, because there is such a huge market there. But there's untapped markets elsewhere. There's still never been a Euro Tour in Spain. There used to be Players' Championships over a decade ago, but there's still never been a Euro Tour in Spain. Now there's not one in Gibraltar either. There's still not been in Southeast Europe. When will there be a Euro Tour, maybe in Greece or Croatia? That's something to look to. There's never been one in Italy. And there's never been one in Poland. So there's a lot of places for the PDC still to go to that they haven't yet. And it's going to come mostly at the expense of Germany, with some of these just being, a couple years on and a couple years off in the other countries.